Vajradara Sumatimonish Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Hum Om Guru Vajradara Sumatimonish Sanek Utta Vardani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Hum Om Guru Vajradara Utta Vardani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Hum Om Guru Vajradara Sumatimo Nishasa Siddhi Hum Hum Om Guru Vajradara Sumatimo Nishasanek Utta Vardani Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Dhagi Chetsun Lama Tuje Che Nyamda Dala Tuje Dala Tendo So Oyon Sungye Nawa Tsedo So Seje Ningne Solwa Debe Tse Dechen Korlo Visu Lekshun Yela Sambe Dede Malupa Gemel Hungi Drupra Chingelo Tsoni Sodan Dikdun Shakpe Tse Dungi Namke Yin So Lekshun Lapchen Tsoni Yonso Tsokpa Dan Chera Nyedun Chamra Chingel Jancho Parge Ninsen Tukun Tu Nyu Peme Suru Jancho Drube Gegen Kunshishi Jingelo Dagelo Na Chola Chokpa Dan Chemin Samjurang Emba Shiwada Chedan Timbe Dede Malupa Beme Hungi Drupra Chingelo Tamche Dan Teche Pardo Negav Tamche Tu Rese Kyamne Lama Kele Me Tukche Chingi Dala Sikso Sol Gongyab Drewe Nyamda Dachala Jetsun Lame Tuche Rabgong Kodan Sunge Nawa Dralme Tu Nyamso Nyongwe Kesan Toprasho Kewa Kuntu Yanda Lama Dan Rame Chek Dorje Changi Kopa Nyur Toba Sho Pakyuke Kudan Dagelu Pakyuke Sundan Dagenga Pakyuke Tugdan Dage Tenyerme Chiktu Chingi Loya Makyuke Kudan Dagelu Makyuke Sundan Dagi Tenyerme Chiktu Chingi Om Yamuni Mahamuni Shakya Sashipu ki chushimeto Ramari Rabalingashi Gempadi Sange Shintu Mikte Ulowarki Drokuna Namanda Shingla Parasho Yidam Guru Ratna Mandala Dayami Sangye Chedan Tsoke Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kyaps Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchira Sangye Druparash Sangye Chedan Tsoke Chonam Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsu Chi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchira Sangye Druparash Sangye Chedan Tsoke Chon Kyapsu Chi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchira Sangye Druparasho.
In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. With the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I obtain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Namo ya lai ke dan lu dan ne jin ke drupon dan mi ke nam dam drowa kuin ke ranam che tsam pa tam che ke to da ge che ten to.
Good morning.
Mi stavo ricordando
I was remembering a story, an anecdote, a story about two very important masters. It's without getting into too many details, let's just say they were two very important masters for the Western world within Buddhism, within the Galupa tradition. And at the beginning, they at the beginning of Buddhism in the West, they had the same they had a center, and they had two different ways of being. Certain points they were very similar, but in other points about difficult points of Buddhism, they one was saying, it's useless to explain really difficult things to people because they're not going. Let's just cut corners a little bit and explain it in a more simplistic way. And the other said, no, because they're difficult things, we just need to repeat them again and again and again. Instead of not explaining them, we need to repeat them even more. So they had just two different ways of being. And when I heard this story, I always thought that somehow we need to be able to do a little bit of both, which it's not because things are difficult that we shouldn't look at them, but at the same time, we shouldn't expect to understand everything right away. And this image comes to mind. Even I think last week we talked about it. When we're in front of we're facing a big mountain, and we have two ways to get up. Either if either you need to scale the mountain, or um, you know, or walk. I mean, the the closest way to get to I mean, my starting point is where I am. I need to organize my departure or going there from where I am. If I want to go to Mount Kailash, I need to start from here. Sometimes we set certain objectives, and on one hand, we victimize ourselves. We say, I can't follow this because I don't have this or that or the other. And somehow we say, oh, but if I were already there, or if I had this, or this person was like that, then it would be possible. Instead, we need to remember that if we want to get somewhere, our starting point that is closest to us is where we are. Because no matter at the end of the day, we have to start where we are. And at the same time, the quickest path, it's not it's quickest it's the quickest in general. It's what I'm able to do, because we say it would be quicker if I knew how to scale a mountain, but I don't know how to do rock climbing. So if I find myself in front of a wall of a mountain wall, um, and if I have the choice between scaling a mountain or walking for 3 months to get around to the top, and I don't know how to rock climb, I need to walk for 3 months. What's important is that even if where we are today seems far away, and even if that path that we think we're able to do seems tiresome, it's possible, but we need to start. Also because if we don't walk in a certain direction with awareness, then we're still not stopped. So we're not still, in the sense that every day of our lives, every moment more than day, the things that we say, the things that we think, the interactions that we have, they are constantly transforming us. We're always walking in one direction or another. We don't have this choice to stay still. We can say, okay, well, I'm not that bad here, and I don't want to put that much energy, so I'll just stay here. No, we don't stay as we are, because no matter what, we interact. There's certain dynamics, and there's transformation. And we have this possibility, and I have faith and trust in each one of us to really to take our lives, our situations in our hands, and to live with more awareness as we try to become who we want to be. And this reminds me of the story of Geshe Chekawa. Geshe Chekawa was a very important master around the 12th century in Tibet. And one day first he heard, and then he read the eight, the text of Geshe Larentampa, which is the 8 verses of mind training. It's a beautiful mind training text. Not that easy. And he was deeply, deeply touched when he read that. And he said, I want to learn more about this. I want to learn this practice. I need to go and find this master. So he took a long, long trip to find him, Geshe Larentampa, and it was around Lhasa. And when he got there, near Lhasa, he was about to enter the city. He saw someone that he spoke. He said, I came to find this master. And the person said, I'm sorry, but he left his body just a few days prior, and he made an offering, an imaginary offering at this master, and he says, well, where they were, he said, I'm going to find these teachings, and there were two disciples in Lhasa. So one of the two, I think is Geshe Patawa, if I'm not wrong. He went to this disciple, went to him every day. Every time he gave teachings, he was present. And about a year or 2 years later, he realized that in all of these teachings, he never received any teachings that had anything to do with the 8 verses of mind training. So he went to find him, and he was, at that moment, he was doing a kora, a circumambulation around a stupa, and he said, Master, can I ask you something? So he took off his cloak, his dagam in Tibetan. It's a kind of cloak. He puts it on the floor for him to sit down, and then he did kora around the master, which in the ancient times this was done, and then he made 3 prostrations, and then he asked him, Master, I've heard and I've read this text, and he recited the 8 verses of mind training. He recites this text and asks the master, I've come here because I've looked for teachings on this, and all this time I've been here, I haven't heard anything about it. Why? Are they not valid, these teachings, or do they not exist? His Geshe Potoa, I don't know now if it was Sharawa or Potoa. Anyway, he puts his hands together and he says, not only are they valid, but these teachings exist. And he said, well, why have I not heard anything about them in your teachings? And he said, because the people who come to me to receive these teachings are not mature enough for these teachings. And he said, well, what are the prerequisites to receive these teachings? He said, you need total determination to put them in practice once you've heard them. And at that point, he takes the commitment and he receives the teachings afterwards. And he stayed about 20 years with this master. And after his master left his body, he actually wrote the 7-point mind training text. Why am I telling you this story? Because to look at ourselves in the eye, to look at our own shadows, and to really embark on a spiritual journey for our own growth, it's not easy. It's not obvious. It's not banal. But it's necessary and possible. So I'm not expecting anyone from one day to the next to become who knows what. But I do expect that we have the courage to look at ourselves in the eyes and to make a sincere effort to grow as people, which means facing our own shadows, developing our own qualities. We go against our negative habits, generate positive habits. So to be in an inner process of transformation that is sincere. Because sometimes people ask, so someone who comes close to Buddhism, like the case of Geshe, the disciples of Geshe Chewara. And he said, well, they were taking refuge, they wanted a positive transformation, etc. And yes and no, in the sense that very often one takes refuge in the Guru, in the Buddha, but one doesn't take refuge in the Dharma. Or rather, I ask for help to the Buddhas, to the masters. I like Buddhism. I like the energy. I feel like I'm part of, and I feel that benefit, and that's wonderful. But I don't have the belief, the trust that I can do it. I don't live it as my own process, my own path that I am following. Oh, the even if I study, even if I study and I recite millions of mantras and I listen to teachings, etc., but I but but I'm still trusting my masters and the Buddhas to do for me. But then I see after that after all this time, I'm still full of anger, or and we see that like this is just that's not working. I'm exaggerating a little bit of a caricature. Sometimes one takes on starts the path, and the priority can be to be a good Buddhist and not actually embark on this transformation. And when we think about the Lojong teachings, the mind training teachings, if you don't put them into practice, they just don't work. And there's a part of these teachings that say, first of all, we need to start where our mental defilement is strongest. There's another part that says, what would the translation be? Don't don't be faithful to your own mental defilements. With the thinking, oh, well, these are my habits, I'm like this. No, where we see there's something that's not right, somehow we need to at least see it clearly and say, okay, this is not good. Now, gradually, little by little, with respect towards myself and the necessary time that's needed, I am going to work on this through with the Dharma, because sometimes we have this idea that when we see some kind of shadow of ourselves, that just seeing it resolves it. No, once when we have deep habits, it takes a long time to change them. It's not from one day to the next. At the same time, there's a part of ourselves, the part of us that's not aware, and that we need help here. This is a theory that I have, which means it can be right or wrong. But thinking about it, I see that it's like our psychophysical, emotional system is constantly looking for balance. And and where we need to work, we unconsciously put ourselves into situations that would have us work on those points. I heard some teachings recently about something that some scientific discovery that said that there's a part of the brain that is activated to the function of this activity is to sh- show us what we need to see, like a filter of our perceptions. Because in every moment, we're receiving an enormous quantity of information. I mean, it's constant information, so much. But the information, the information that we receive, naturally, we filter that information. And based on that, we have attraction to some things, aversion to others, others we don't see at all. And behind that, we have our own system that filters. It does that kind of um, um, filtering. Like this is important, this one's not, and it directs us towards a direction. And we think that our conceptual part is commanding it, and yet it's not. We're 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 manipulated incredibly by our own selves. I don't know if this is clear. Let me explain myself better. One as one aspect from this system, it's said that when we want something, naturally we try to put the information together so that we get what we want. So we see things that maybe we wouldn't have seen, and it takes us to live situations or go towards things that seem that 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 seem random, but actually we've created that situation. And what I was thinking about, not only does this happen regarding desire, there was a psychiatrist that talked about this, said that it's important at the beginning of the day to clarify what I want and desire positive things, because when you desire beautiful things, naturally your system is going to look at everything through that filter of that desire. On the other hand, what happens is, let's imagine the following. A few days ago, here it's gone, but I got like a splinter or something. What happens when we have, it was very small. What happens when a very small foreign object enters into our body? I mean, what does our body do? Our bodies, tries to wake us up. Sends, um, sensations of pain, and then says, okay, this one's not listening to me, so let me try to get this out. And then there's the infection, the pus trying to get it out. But what's the first thing? Somehow it shows us that something's there. Similarly, and so what happens the at the beginning, it doesn't hurt so much. But if right away I'm able to receive that signal, and then and maybe then I do what's necessary, maybe make a little cut to take it out. But as long as I don't deal with it, that the level of alarm, it just raises more and more. When it's something very obvious, it's easier. When it's less obvious, it's more difficult. For example, I'll give you a personal example. It's easier. I've had pain sometimes in my neck, and more than once, I've gone to someone on um, um, to say, and then explain, oh, because there's this muscle here, there's a very small muscle that it gives so much pain. And I say, why do I have this pain? And they say, oh, it comes because because you're being pulled from your scapula and from your intestines. So the problem is in my intestine. So why do I have a problem with my intestines? So what happens when I have pain here? Luckily, not very often, but when you know, when one has pain here at the neck, one tries to treat the neck, do a massage on the neck. Sorry, there's something that's bothering me here. Very practical. Here, I'll show you. I don't know if you know this. It has to do with it comes from Chinese medicine. It's very pleasurable. Anyway, what happens? Okay, my neck hurts. What do I try to deal with? I try to deal with my neck. But, and when it's just a splinter, that's easy. I mean, it hurts just there. But actually, if my neck hurts and I try to treat my neck with massages or exercises, if my problem actually comes from my shoulder, it's and actually the problem of my shoulder comes from my intestines, you know. And I tried to resolve this problem with the intestine. I discussed this with two different doctors. I tried to resolve the problem with my intestine, dealing with my intestine, and with the results that were kind of okay. But actually, the problem came with the bile and other things. If I don't go deeper to try to understand what my body is showing me, then I'm not able to really deal with it. So so the deeper the problem, the more difficult it is to deal with it. But of course, if as long as I don't treat the actual cause, then it's going to keep manifesting in different ways. It's interesting to see that sometimes, like in my case, it's as if there's certain dynamics that are a little bit hidden, and we don't want to see them ourselves. Somehow, we know that they're there. We're aware that there's something that's not right, but for a long time, even if it's highlighted to us, then we say, no, no, it's not possible. And maybe we get up the courage to see it, say, okay, I need to do something about this. Maybe we don't do anything right away. It takes time, but that, and as long as I don't actually deal with it, those symptoms reoccur. So what happens? I don't know if it's ever happened that you've lived a situation that you didn't like. You put a lot of effort to resolve it. You resolve that situation, and then once you turn the corner and you find yourself in a similar situation. It's happened to me. They're like, oh, there, I'm being I'm being persecuted. As since I was a child, I've always had this situation. It's it's an astrological issue problem, or I'm just unlucky, or why. I mean, I don't like the horrible situations. And we have lots to say about it. But from my point of view, what happens is, in the same way that we have pain in our neck, but there's something else that's causing it, our system, every time that there's something that is unbalanced, our system will tries first to create balance by itself. But there are parts that also depend on being aware and changing some habits. Our system is not able to do it alone, not without this help from our side. And in that case, our body is really trying to show us what we need to look at. I'm saying something a little bit invented, but I think that it's logical. This anterior reticular system that I talked about before, it shows us, things, shows us things that are seemingly random, but that we've actually chosen. They're showing us what we need to see. A little like that joke that I used to tell when I was a child. I was about 5, 6 years old, and I'd go around to the adults and I would say, wherever I touch myself, it hurts. I touch my shoulder, it hurts. I touch my face, it hurts. And my forehead, it hurts. My knee, it hurts. And I would go on and on and on with this. And then I would ask, well, what's my sickness? Maybe someone would say generalized infection or generalized um, inflammation. No, I have, my finger hurts. That was my joke. So as long as I don't take care of my finger, wherever I touch myself, it will hurt. And until, as long as I don't treat my intestine and the cause of that pain, my neck will be in pain. I can try to do to do exercise to reinforce my neck or massages. That will help a little bit. Then I won't hear that alarm as much, but it doesn't resolve the problem. So I invite you to reflect a little bit in your life. What are the problems that follow you? What are the things that say, well, why am I always here? And like in relationships with other people, for example. If we see, for example, have this tendency, it's as if we like people with certain characteristics, and then we find that kind of person always in front of us. I don't know if this has happened to you or it's just to me, right? Why? Because these are aspects of our own that are conflictual, that are unbalanced, that we need to take care of. And as long as I say that I'm a victim of the world, and why am I so silly that I keep looking for or surrounding myself with people with these kinds of characteristics, etc. Instead of doing that, we are able to take a breath, look at ourselves in the eyes, and say, what is about this situation? What is it in this situation that resounds something in me that makes me live that situation negatively? And it's not just the people, but it could be also situations at work or, different dynamics that one can see in many different ways. But we see something that repeats itself, something we should really have the courage to look at ourselves and ask ourselves, okay, I'm not the victim of the world. If I'm living this situation, if this situation is difficult for me, if I lose my balance and my inner harmony in front of this situation, it's because this situation is touching something in me that is not settled. It unsettles me. There's some kind of unresolved conflict, some kind of wound that is not resolved, that needs to be resolved. And so I'm constantly looking for situations that are similar to show me that I need to resolve this situation. I need to. My problem is I keep having massages on my neck, and I I I don't even look at my. Let's leave the intestines aside. I don't even think about my shoulder, my scapula. In my own experience, what is key is if I'm in a situation that somehow repeats itself, as long as I try to run away or change the situation or try to make sure that that situation is no longer there, is going to keep repeating itself. But as once I look at myself and I say, I realize that the key is being in front of that situation without losing my balance. So once I'm able, and I'm able to say, okay, maybe I'm not in front of that situation, but as long as I keep running away and I keep victimizing myself, I will find myself there again and again, like the splinter in my finger, and until if I keep ignoring it, my body is just going to give me louder and louder alarms to show me that there's a problem. And there'll be situations that are more and more extreme to show me that that I need to really face this problem with seriousness and affection. It's difficult, yes, but there's not much alternative in the sense that, I mean, it's difficult to face our own wounds, our own difficulties, our own traumas, this part of the shadow that we all have. But also living with that is also tiresome. So there's not an alternative to say, okay, you can do like this and you won't have any problem. No. So it's very important, as said in the Lojong teachings, we need to start by facing our bad habits, our mental defilements, this, these shadows where they're strongest, where they manifest more clearly, and don't have this false fidelity that where we say, oh yeah, I have that bad habit, but I'm also so good at other things. No, one thing is one thing, another thing is another. We're not playing, with points here. We say, oh, I'm good here. I've done many beautiful things. And so it balances out, it compensates for those bad things that I've done. It's like I have a soil where I plant seeds. If I put seeds for things that are very sweet, and then I put seeds for something that are very bitter or spicy, so there'll be because they're mixed. Does the sweet become bitter? No, the seeds of the sweet seeds will give a sweet fruit, and the bitter or spicy seeds will give bitter or spicy fruit. So all my positive actions will generate positive results, but they don't compensate, they don't um, clear away the negative things that I've done. That's not how it works. The negative things will give negative results. And we need courage to look at ourselves in the face and say, one step after the other, I will face it all without being in a hurry. It's very interesting because it's as if our system, once it's listened to, even if it's not totally, even if we haven't taken out the splinter completely, but it hurts a lot less once we start giving attention to those aspects and facing these aspects. It, it's already beneficial, starts to be beneficial. So let's remember that when we see the world, what we see actually, even in subconsciously, is a reflection of what I have inside myself. And if I live it, um, or if I constantly create certain situations, it's because I need to face those aspects. I don't need to run away from a situation that I don't like. It's not useful. I don't know why, but it reminds me of a joke that is an attitude that somehow we all have. The story of this couple. And the husband goes to his wife and he says, you know, do you remember when we met? And soon after the war started and you were there at my side. Yes. And we had to flee our city. Yes. And you were there. And then we were actually imprisoned and you were there and you were there. And then I got sick and you were at my side. And then we were able to get out and yeah. And then we were able to rebuild, and then we lost everything again. And you were there. Gosh, you bring me such bad luck. This is an attitude of seeing things. It's one way of seeing things where we are giving the blame. We're blaming others, blaming the world, and we don't see that. How can I say that we've created these situations, but we but we also live situations according to our own necessities. I don't mean that everything that happens every day. Um, mm, I don't mean to say that those who are in a war zone, it's that they have desired that. I'm not saying that at all. But there's so much in our lives that we are constantly repeating and recreating, looking for, especially those re- experiences that repeat themselves. Is there those even from childhood, from birth, feel lonely? Um, they feel uh, responsible for certain things. They feel that they need to resolve problems for others. I mean, there are thousands of examples. And those situations, if we see them repeating in our lives, I mean, here I think uh, we're all of a certain, we're all adults here of a certain age. We all have a certain age, and if we look at ourselves and say, okay, I've seen this film before, I've watched this movie before. Okay, so know that this is not random. You are choosing. Your choices have created this situation. And once I'm able to be in front of that situation without losing my balance, then that situation really changes. It transforms. And this allows me to not not repeat it. But it's interesting, once we're able to face something and be in front of a situation without losing my balance, at that point, it doesn't really matter if that situation is like that or not, because we're fine. And the, and that's actually when those situations stop repeating themselves. Like I said before, there's no hurry, and we shouldn't put pressure on ourselves to think we need to do this immediately. It's about shedding light on situations and putting effort. And we ask ourselves, what are the dynamics in my life that repeat themselves? And we see, okay, well, what are the attitudes I have that repeat themselves in front of these dynamics? And let's remember that we are not the victim of the world. What's happening here that I need to remember? Like once someone came to me and said, Lama, I have a really big problem at work. I knew the situation a little bit. This person said, my associate, my partner, my partner doesn't recognize my qualities or what I do, doesn't see my effort, the hard work. Okay. I know the situation a little bit. I said, have you ever felt like this in other situations? And this person said, actually, thought a little bit. Since birth, my parents never recognized me. They never saw me. I never got any kind of recognition. My my husband, my children, they don't see me. And now my partner doesn't even see me. I said, okay, what's the what's in common? What's the common denominator in all these situations? I mean, who is the common denominator in all these situations? This person it took a while for this person to think about it, because when we're strongly victimizing ourselves, it's hard to see things with a different and to see things differently. And this person then said, okay, there's something inside me that is unsettled, but it's not easy to look at ourselves with affection and have that courage to do something about it. Today, mostly I wanted to bring this point because I strongly believe that one of the necessary steps that we need for our spiritual growth is to stop victimizing ourselves, which doesn't mean not seeing external situations and say, okay, this is unhealthy. It's better to not um, to not continue in the situation. If my neck hurts and I understand that the problem comes from another place, I'm going to do what I can um, um, to treat the cause. But in the meantime, I'm also going to take care of my neck. Um, it's we shouldn't say, okay, I need to look at this situation. I have to stay here and face this situation. No, there are certain situations that are really unhealthy, and we should take um, create some space. But ask ourselves, why? Why am I unsettled in this situation? And even where we don't find a reason why, it doesn't take away the fact that if we try to act differently, we can still heal that wound, even if we don't understand everything. And one key is having just a different, uh, uh, behaving differently. So if there's a situation that always unsettles me, and I ask myself, oh, how can I act differently? Mhm. try to remind myself that that what I'm living um, is a memory of something, of, some other filter, and really try to act differently. And maybe it will resolve itself very, very quickly. And maybe there'll be other things even deeper. I mean, it is possible. It's a possible path. And in the Lojong teachings, it said that mental defilement, that inner conflict, that is strongest, is the one that should be dealt with first. And this means also stepping out of our comfort zone, which is something very positive. Not too much, but because by nature we're lazy. I mean, I am, and those around me, those I see around me, which means that putting a certain amount of effort, we don't we don't do it unless we really see the need. And as long as we're comfortable, we won't put effort into making a change. I don't know if you recognize yourselves in this. So when there's something that is unhealthy, but we're in a comfortable space, um, you know, our system is trying to take us out of our comfort zone so that we can wake up and do something. And just, I repeat one more time, let's just look at the situations in our life, especially those that repeat themselves, with awareness with all of this awareness, because mere awareness already creates a healing process without having to do great things, but simply looking and recognizing. It's like, let's say somebody's stealing from you. You don't stop that person, but you look at that person and you say, I know that you're stealing. The person maybe will be a little more careful, maybe steal a little bit less. There's somebody watching him. So when we're able to create this awareness of ourselves, that's already helpful, beneficial. The conclusion is, I mean, we start where we are. We walk the path with affection, and joy. Last week we talked about joy, because what's more beautiful than being able to walk a path of growth, and the path of self-healing is not always easy, of course. But it's this spiritual path is not always easy, but it's joyous. It's important for us to remember that. And so, and it's not by suffering that we grow. Sometimes I hear, oh, with everything I've lived, all these situations, if if I don't get enlightened, who will? I mean, since when has suffering since when has suffering brought growth? Inducing suffering is not the answer. What brings growth is facing um, our negativities. So let's time for our dedications.
Namkara chinle chokchur gepada losan tempe drume sasumgi drove munsel takto negi nimo dele tsendele nime kuyan delek shin nilsen takto delek pe kuncho sumki chingelo kuncho sumki ngodrub tsol kuncho
At dawn or at dusk, at night or midday, May the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness.
At dawn or dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness.
Trashidele, have a very nice day, everyone.